Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 167. If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. Milton Berle.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Film Convert. Film Convert I used heavily on creating the cinematic look I got on my film, This Is Meg. It helps you give your digital video footage a beautiful cinematic look of film instantly. Whether you're shooting on a GoPro, a DSLR, a Red, an Alexa, a Blackmagic, it doesn't matter. Film Convert has created specific camera profiles for almost every camera on the planet, so it can adjust to your footage. Film Convert gives you the power to create amazing looking cinematic images with just a couple clicks. And of course, because you guys are part of the Indie Film Hustle tribe, you get 10% off Film Convert by using the coupon code HUSTLE. But you can try this software for free, guys. Just head over to indiefilmhustle.com/film convert. That's indiefilmhustle.com/film CONVERT. This show is also sponsored by the iTunes release of This Is Meg, the movie that you guys have been listening about for the past year. And it's finally going to be available on iTunes on August 4th. Just head over to thisismeg.com/iTunes. And if you pre-order it, you get a nice discount before August 4th and be the first one to get it as soon as it gets released. Guys, I am so excited to bring you this episode. I've been chasing this guest for almost a year now, and it's just we couldn't get our schedules right, and it was always something going on. It was just really tough to just nail down a time that we both could do this, and we finally did it. As promised in episode 166, today's guest is Nick Palmisciano from the indie film miracle called Range 15. Now, Nick and his compadres put together a $1.2 million film that went on, and by the way, they crowdfunded that $1.2 million, and we're going to discuss how he did that, because he has never made a movie, nor anybody on the team really that put this whole thing together have never made a movie, acted in a movie, or written a movie. And they decided just to go out there and do it, raise the money, and go. And they crowdfunded that budget. And then not only did they crowdfund the budget, and they self-distributed it through Distribber. And they went straight to iTunes and Amazon. And they have, according to Nick, have made over $3 million to date and counting. And that's only been around a year old. That is insane. Insane for a horror comedy, a zombie B-flick, as I quote Nick, to go on and not only make that amount of money, they were able to break the top 10 of all of iTunes, competing with the studios. And they actually got all the way to number 2 on iTunes. Only Angry Birds beat them. I mean, come on, seriously, you couldn't beat Angry Birds. But, and I know that will drive Nick crazy for the rest of his life, but they got to number 2. And the studios even started taking notice, like, who are these guys? How did they get up there? What is this movie? Because the top 10 of iTunes is generally, held for the studios for $100, $200 million movies. But these guys were beating Batman versus Superman and just big monster studio tempo films. And I wanted to get him on the show so he could share his story on how the whole project came together, how they crowdfunded it, their journeys through Hollywood, because they're not from Hollywood, in the distribution game, and the crazy stories and meetings they had with distributors, and then finally getting to Distribber and getting their movies through Distribber to iTunes and Amazon, and what both of those platforms did for the film and continues to do for the film, and also the ancillary products that they've sold, t-shirts, Blu-rays, DVDs, posters, and so on. And guys, I mean, they're just an inspiration. Nick and the team that put together Range 15 is an inspiration of understanding your market and making a product for that market or that community, as opposed to making a movie, then going out and trying to find a community to sell it to or a customer to sell it to. They knew their customer and built something for their customers. This is business 101. So without any further ado, I want you to enjoy and please take notes and get ready to be inspired by Nick from Range 15. I'd like to welcome to the show Nick Palmisciano. 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 Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. So, man. We've been playing phone tag or email tag for a long time now, probably months, if not almost a year. So I really appreciate us finally connecting and having you on the show, man.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Nick, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background so the audience kind of gets to know who you are and where you came from.
Sure. I kind of grew up all over the place. My dad was a Vietnam veteran that ended up working for the military as a DoD civilian for a long time. So grew up in Italy and kind of have been just about everywhere at this point. Went to high school in Massachusetts, so I'm a diehard Patriots fan. So I apologize for all of you out there that hate us.
I'm a very sad Dolphin fan. So been sad for 30.
I respect the Dolphins.
Dude, been sad for about 30 odd years now.
Well, you guys used to kill us when I was a kid, so it's refreshing. It's refreshing to be on the other side of it.
When Marino was around, yes. Okay. Anyway,
Marino was around.
We'll keep talking.
I went to West Point, and after West Point, became an infantry officer, which I did for 6 years. Got out of the military, went to grad school, got the corporate job, and felt very empty. And started a little hobby on the side just to kind of keep my connection to the military community. And that was the apparel company that I now run called Ranger Up. Mm-hmm. And it's been 11 years now, believe it or not, since I started that hobby. And we've been able to do incredible things since then. Most recently, we teamed up with our friends at Article 15, another military clothing company, and we launched a movie called Range 15.
And we'll get all into Range 15 in a little bit, without question.
And then after that, a documentary about that film called Not a War Story. And so that is the 60-second version of my life. Is lots of travel, joined the military, got a job, and then started a hobby that became my real life's work.
Now, Ranger Up is not like a little company anymore, right? I mean, this is a substantial apparel company.
Yeah. It's we've I think we crossed seven figures like 7 years ago.
Wow.
So we sell a lot of t-shirts.
That's awesome, man. Now
it's weird because people don't realize how many t-shirts you have to sell
to get to seven figures.
Numbers.
No, it's a massive.
I wish we were selling like battleships, we sold one battleship. Like,
we're good
for the year. That would be preferable.
Exactly. Now, tell me the story of how and why you launched a YouTube channel.
Yeah. So, I think people that are starting companies now are growing up in a world where Facebook and social media and Instagram and all those things are just the norm. Mm-hmm. When I started Ranger Up, Facebook existed, but the only reason I had Facebook was because I went to grad school at Duke University.
Right. It was college only. I remember that. Yeah.
It wasn't even college only at that point. It was like quote unquote elite colleges,
Right.
They started with Harvard, then they added a couple more. So, almost nobody was on Facebook. Certainly nobody that, was super interested in what we were doing. So I wrote a lot of articles for blogs and did a lot of stuff that was very popular back in the day, kind of these different networking sites. Mm-hmm. And then, Facebook started becoming a thing. And I was like, it's, it kind of makes it easy to share content. And this was like 2007, 2008. And I had been making videos like my entire life. I made funny videos with, 2 VCRs when I was in the military,
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
You know, when I was a kid, I made, highlight videos and joke videos, for like my wrestling team. So I've always kind of had a passion for film. And even when I was at Duke University, we had a show called Fuquavision that was very similar to like a really bad Saturday Night Live focused on, Duke life.
Okay.
And I spent like more time doing that than I did, academics. And I'm not saying that as like a joke. I mean, I really spent more time, in the editing room than I did working on class. So, I've always had a passion for film, and all of a sudden I had this medium where, we could come up with content and you could easily share it. And, and back then when all this kind of stuff started, if you got a couple thousand views, that was huge. Like, wow, a few thousand people watch my stuff.
That's huge. It's still like everyone looks at like, oh, you have to get 1 million views. Like 2,000 people is a lot of people.
A lot, right?
Right.
Yeah, when you really think about it. And so, back then it was just like, well, this is a cool way to kind of, do something fun, engage, with like-minded people, and no one else was doing this. Like, we were the first military apparel brand. Before us, you could buy like skull shirts and, skulls with snakes wrapped around them and death from above and that kind of stuff. But nobody had made it cool. And so, we created this whole industry. Now there's 30-something brands in the industry. And then we were the first to start creating content, and we didn't come out with tough guy content. It was always funny. It was like, I've always felt that the toughest dudes never take themselves too seriously. So like if you've got a bunch of military guys and they're just trying to tell you how tough they are, like they probably aren't that tough. Like the dudes that I knew that were truly badasses were never sitting around talking about themselves. They were talking about other things that had nothing to do with the military, or they were talking about training. They were never just sitting around going,
I'm the baddest.
I'm so good. I'm so good, dude. And so, when people do that, I instantly start raising an eyebrow when somebody's spending a lot of time telling you how tough they are. And so we never wanted to do that. We just created a lot of funny stuff. And like one of the first videos we did was called the Ranger Up workout video, where it starts off and you think it's going to be serious. And then, everybody's in super short shorts, and it's not remotely a workout. And, and it became like a huge success, at the time, big numbers, hundreds of thousands of people watched it. And
that's still big numbers, by the way. I would kill for that.
Yeah. It's not as much anymore, but back then it was huge.
Right.
It was wild. And so, we kind of started committing to doing this more and more, and we got better at it, better at creating content. We start investing in equipment, and fast forward 11 years, we're coming off making 2 movies with our buddies from Article 15. So it's been a wild ride.
So, and then so basically for the audience to understand, you understood who your market was, the niche that you were trying to go after. Then you started creating content for that niche and building that audience up. And I'm assuming that was to help you connect with your audience and sell more product.
Yes. So I've got a weird outlook on all this stuff. And I don't want to I'm not trying to sound like a holier than thou dude or anything.
Sure.
Like, I don't love apparel. Like I have no passion for apparel. I didn't want to sell t-shirts because I just love t-shirts.
Right.
I really like the community. And when I left the military, it was very bittersweet. I don't know anybody that is worthwhile that left the military and was like just 100% yes, I'm so glad I'm out. Almost always I'm glad I'm out for these reasons, but I miss the guys, I miss the camaraderie, and I miss the mission. And I fell into that category. And so I wanted to connect. And so I created t-shirts, I wrote articles, and I tried to build a community where there wasn't one before. When you get out, you're kind of isolated. You go from having all of these friends around you with shared values to you go back to wherever it is you're from, or you go to some new place and now you're alone. And a lot of people have problems with that. And so I wanted to build a virtual community with Ranger Up to just keep people connected. Like in the back of my head, I was like, I might make a few thousand extra bucks doing this. But, you know, I had a big time corporate job and, you know, there was no real thought to leaving that in order to sell t-shirts on the internet.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, you know, when I decided to do it, there is nobody, I mean, like literally no one in my life that didn't look at me like I was an idiot.
Right. Right. That's generally the best times. No, I would agree. If you were in my life and you said the same thing, I'm like, maybe, but you know, it's still a pretty big risk, pretty big jump.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy moment, and I did it because I found out I was getting promoted. Oh, and the raise was going to be about $100K, and I was, you know, at that point barely over 30.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there going, like, if I take this job, I will never get out. I will never do anything else because the money's going to be too good. I will never be able to take the risk. And so I found out on a Friday that I was getting promoted and gave my notice on a Monday after thinking about it for the weekend.
That's pretty amazing. And so, but basically your audience, well, let me ask you, how important is your audience building been to your business as a general statement?
Incredibly important. You know, that my audience is my business. There, you know, there is nothing else. Like, yeah, there are people, you know, that buy our stuff that have no idea who we are, that, you know, don't really care about the values we have. They just like the shirt. Like, absolutely. And that you're always going to have that. But, you know, I think the majority of our customers, you know, buy from us, not just because we sell a quality product, but because they believe in the ethos.
Right. Of what of your community, of basically the values of your community that you've built up.
Yes, absolutely.
So then what made you decide to finally go into the crazy world of full-blown filmmaking and make a feature film?
So really interestingly, you know, in 2009, I did my first real interview with Ranger Up. And in that interview, which went to a Fort Bragg newspaper, I said, you know, someday I want this company to be big enough where we can do feature film and affect policy. And I got laughed at a lot for that. Like I actually saved some of the comments because, you know, people were like, stick to t-shirts, you know, like, are you kidding me? You're going to do movies. Like, how are you going to do that? You know? Sure. And so then fast forward, you know, to 2014 and Jared Taylor from Article 15 called me up and was like, hey man, like, I'm working on this project. Like, I had this idea about doing a movie and I want you to see the script and tell me what you think. So he sends me the script and I thought it was a great concept. I was laughing the whole time. And I made a bunch of notes. Like, I probably sent him, you know, 4 pages of like alternative dialogue or ideas or whatever. And so, you know, and he calls me, he's like, so you liked it? I was like, yeah, man, this is really cool. Like, if you make this a little more military here and that, you know, and like, this could be really, really funny. And he was like, how about we do this together? And I was like, yep, let's do it. I'm in. And so at that point, you know, Jared and I became we formed a company to do this film and, you know, became the co-managers of, you know, creating Range 15. And, man, neither of us really had any idea what we were signing up for. The hardest professional accomplishment of my entire life. Was dragging this movie across the finish line. Oh yeah. And you know, we thought the hard part was going to be the script, you know, because, you know, the script took months and months and months to get right, and we argued about it, and, you know, knockout drag out fights, and, you know, but ultimately we ended up with a better script as a result. And we were fortunate. I didn't realize how many people in Hollywood actually end up kind of breaking up as friends over creative differences.
It's happened to me. It's happened to multiple of people I know. That's generally the way it goes. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the military, we're so used to, like, the culture of the military is you're supposed to fight the fight. Like, if you believe something, you're supposed to fight it. And then once it's resolved, whether you got your way or not, everybody's supposed to drop it. Like, that is the culture that we have, where
makes sense.
If you don't fight the fight, you're doing a disservice to the men, you're doing a disservice to yourself.
Sure.
And you're being cowardly, but but once it's decided, you either get on board or you go away. And so that's just, we'd have these fights, and then at the end of the night, we'd be sharing a beer or something. Like, it never stayed. And so that was one of the things our director found really interesting, is that we would have these, like, pretty aggressive conversations, and then, like, everybody would be fine. And he kept waiting for the ball to drop.
Right. Because that's our training. In our business, that's exactly when you see stuff like that happen, like, this is going to blow up at any moment, and the whole thing's going to come crashing to a halt or down, and we're not going to be able to finish this movie. Yeah. And, it's just the way that we were all used to kind of acting that, it worked out. So we thought the script was going to be the challenge. And then we thought, raising money was going to be the challenge. We couldn't get money from Hollywood for obvious reasons, we had, none of us had made a movie. None of us had written a movie. None of us had acted in a film. There was no reason for Hollywood to give us money. So we went to Indiegogo, and, we were just hoping, hey, if we got $350K, then, Ranger Up in Article 15 could kick in another, a few $100,000, and we could make a small, $500,000 or $600,000 movie, and it'd be cool. And then, we ended up raising, just shy of 1.2 million on Indiegogo, and I was able to bring in a bunch of other sponsors. Yeah. Can you, so let me stop you there for a second. So, all right. So so when you started crowdfunding on Indiegogo, you basically went out to your audience, and then you told your audience, hey, this is what we're doing. And they responded much better than you could ever have dreamed of.
Yeah. I did think we were going to get the 350. I thought we were going to grind it out and get the 350, but not in my wildest dreams that I think we were going to cross 350 in 30 hours.
That's insane.
It was insane.
That was the power of your audience. That was the power of the connection you made with your audience.
Yeah. We planned that, surgically, like how we executed that. We, first of all, we had just watched Super Troopers 2 raise $4 million.
Right.
And we modeled a lot of what we did after Super Troopers, because they had created an effective model for doing that. And then, Jared and I reached out to lots of different, supportive websites, supportive audiences. So it wasn't just Ranger Up and Article 15s. It was also the ancillary characters in both of our companies. So Matt Best on his social media, Tim Kennedy on his social media. But then also we were able to enlist, friends, like other personalities, military supporters, Medal of Honor recipients. And we had it all staggered so that, every, 6 hours, somebody new that had a large audience was posting it, which kept it very fresh on Facebook. And so, and then it kind of took on a life of its own. It went over 350. And then Marcus Luttrell, I had a small relationship with Marcus Luttrell from a previous event. We weren't tight or anything like that, but I had his contact info. I reached out to him, asked if he might be interested, and he did a little video that said, hey, if I'll be in this movie if it goes over, $500,000. And he posts that video, and then a day later we're over $500,000, and like it just kept going and going and going. And that was when we're like, oh, we have a real movie now. And our director said, look, you guys now have the budget to actually bring in some actors.
Right.
Not just you guys and some working actors. And I say that with absolutely no disrespect, because a lot of times working actors are truly the best actors, but
marquee value actors, in other words.
Bring in, right. Yeah. And so I started writing letters. In particular, like I really wanted William Shatner to be in the movie. It's not like I'm a huge Trekkie or anything like that, but I really loved him as Denny Crane in Boston Legal. Yeah. And he quietly does a lot of stuff for the military. He doesn't make a huge deal out of it. And I just thought it would be absolutely epic if we got William Shatner. So we all had kind of like our dream list. Everybody wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger. Everybody wanted Stallone. That would have been amazing. Sure. But those guys they're a little busy.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But even Shatner, we didn't think we were going to get him. And he got the letter that I wrote him, and he said, no one's ever sent me a letter like this before, and I might be making a mistake, but I'm going to do it. And he came out and he did it. And once he signed on, it was magical. So as soon as he signed on, everybody else was interested. Then it was a real movie.
So nobody wants to be the first to the party. That's the way it works in the town.
No, because if you've seen the movie, we really went for it. It's really dark. It's very inappropriate, and so people were worried about their careers. And so I want to say we got. Let's see. We started with William Shatner, then Randy Couture, who's a friend, said he would do it, and then Keith David signed on.
Love Keith, man. He's
and
awesome.
Then Sean Astin actually called us. So imagine you're our director, and your phone rings, and it's like, hey, this is Sean Astin. I was wondering if I could be in your movie, And Ross was like, it's not my call. It's not my call, but I'm pretty sure the guys are going to be thrilled. Let me check with the guys. And so he gets Jared and I on a conference call, and he's like, hey, Sean Astin just called, and he wants to be in the movie. And I was like, Samwise Gamgee, Sean Astin, or like, is there a new up and coming Sean Astin that I don't know about? Like, no, Samwise Gamgee. I'm like, yeah. And that right there is when I became a hero to my children. Because they're the Lord of the Rings generation. They're not Star Wars kids. They're Lord of the Rings kids. And so I had Samwise in the movie. So. And then it just got crazy, man. Like people couldn't believe the cast we had. We couldn't believe the cast we had. Yep. And a
decent budget, a very decent budget. I mean, low budget for what you guys were trying to do, because you guys went for it.
We went for it.
But you did a fantastic job for the budget you had. It looks awesome. It looks really
the budget we had and the time we had. I'm very proud of what we pulled off.
Now, can you talk a little bit about how the sponsors worked, and how did you incorporate them in your plan for Range 15?
So I went to sponsors exclusively that had ties to the military community or had supported the military community in the past. So, instead of going for, kind of big marquee names, for like the energy drink, we went to Killcliff, which is they're a sizable company now, but they're a veteran owned, Navy SEAL owned company, that makes a really great energy drink. And it's designed for like the CrossFit kind of athletic community. It's not as heavy, if you drink a Red Bull or something, sometimes that can be on the heavier side. You don't want to drink a Red Bull and then sprint.
Right.
And I love Red Bull, but there's certain things you do and don't do with it. Whereas, with Killcliff, you can drink it and then work out.
Gotcha.
And And so, asked them if they wanted to be involved, and they surprised the hell out of me by coming in big. They wanted to come in and like be the Cure. And I was like, that's awesome.
Good. So this was product placement. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Okay, so you you went after so I'm just trying to break it down for the audience. You have an audience that your niche audience. You go after niche companies within that audience or that community, have those guys product place inside your movie, which helps raise the budget of the movie, obviously, and give you a better product.
Yes.
That's amazing. It's so amazing, yet it seems like it's genius, but it seems so logical.
Yeah, it's just it's not even. I don't even want to take credit for having some kind of strategic, magical vision. It's more like these are the people we like and trust.
Mm-hmm.
North American Rescue is a veteran-owned company that also happens to be, the largest supplier of like emergency medical products, in the world. Like NAR saves more lives than any other company. So like if you are carrying a tourniquet, odds are you're carrying a cat tourniquet made by NAR. If you're carrying, if you have a nice, emergency health kit in your car or in your house, it's probably made by NAR.
Gotcha.
So these guys came in, and they wanted to get the cat tourniquet placed in a few places. So like when, the Medal of Honor recipient, Leroy Petrie, he had actually lost his arm in combat and was saved by someone applying a cat tourniquet to him. So in the movie, as a joke, like we blow off the other arm and, with a terrible prosthetic, like it's so over the top. And, and then he gets a cat tourniquet applied to it by another Medal of Honor recipient.
Right.
Which is also crazy. We had, this is the most decorated movie ever made, and it's a zombie B flick. Like there is no movie in the history of film that has had more military muscle
in it
than this film. Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. Now you get the movie done. You've edited the movie. It's all finished. Now you're like, okay, we're going to try to sell this thing. Well, what do? Yep. You go to obviously traditional distributors, but what was your experience talking to traditional distributors?
It was not good. It was not good.
Can you tell me an example of one conversation? My
favorite conversation was that these guys wanted us to reshoot the movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Okay.
He's like, this is a funny concept. They wanted to replace Matt Best,
right? Who's the star?
Jean-Claude, who's the star of the film,
right?
With Jean-Claude Van Damme.
But you've already have a movie. It's done.
We have a movie.
It's done. But they're like, no, let's reshoot the whole thing.
Let's reshoot it with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Did they offer you money for this?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was just comical. And then another one they wanted to buy the film. I want to say it was like $350K or $500K or something. And then they wanted to put us into another movie as like they were a small firm, so it wasn't like we were going to. It's not like they wanted to buy it and put us in Transformers. They wanted to buy it and put us in like an even worse B flick,
right?
That was completely uncreative, but behind a known actor, not a big actor, but like somebody that
marquee value
that has some marquee value, And we were like, no, like we can sell the movie for more than $500,000 just by putting it on iTunes and Amazon. And they're like, no, like everybody thinks that, but it doesn't work that way. And we're like, no, we know our community, like we 100% will get that back. And basically everybody just acted like we got really lucky. And maybe we did, maybe we did get a little lucky. I mean, I understand a lot of people that really know what they're doing have failed at this, But I think one of the things that people do, I think, out of order is they try to create a film and find an audience.
Right.
Whereas we had an audience and created a film for that audience.
Mm-hmm. And that's,
I think there's a big difference.
That's the future, though. I think that's the future of independent filmmaking in general.
100% agree. I think we just gave everybody the blueprint for how you should make an independent film. Not that there aren't other ways to do it. I'm not trying to pretend like we came up with some amazing thing,
Mm-hmm,
but hey, again, who are we? Like, we're no one. We are not household names.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows who we are if you're not in the military community.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you that we're the only independent film in history to ever top the charts on Amazon, and that's from Amazon.
So before we get to that, what made you want to go with Distributor? Because Distributor was the final company you decided to self-distribute your film with, right?
Yeah. Talked to a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of different feedback, and there's some other okay companies out there, but Nick Soros gave me some pretty significant time. He's their president.
Mm-hmm. Nick's awesome.
He just told me his story. He's like, look, man, like, I made film. I made successful film, and somehow, like, I would make a film and it would make a lot of money, and I would get none of that money. Over and over again. Like, he's like, I ended up upside down on, half my films, and, other films I made like a little bit of money, but there was all this money being made. And I was sitting there going, like, what is the motivation to do something only to, like, hand it over to other people who are going to, take all of the profit from it and throw scraps at me. Like, that's not how you get independent filmmakers, to thrive,
Mm-hmm.
and Nick and I have had a lot of, conversations about this. China now pretty much owns the film industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like, okay, business is business, and they are, these multinational companies have bought most of the major production houses in Hollywood now.
Mm-hmm.
But the result of that is they are going to build film that is going to sell on an international scale, not film that is necessarily interesting or good. Like, they're going to make Transformers and Fast and the Furious movies forever. And there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with those. I'm not sitting here judging, like, Fast and the Furious 8. Like, I'll watch it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's entertaining. But I don't want to just watch Fast and the Furious 8. And I feel like that is the direction we're heading. And I think there are going to be very few major production company films that are interesting in the future. The trend is definitely more towards, very cliche, action-packed films.
Yeah, for every Baby Driver, there's 45 Transformers.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
And I haven't even seen Baby Driver yet, but I hear I can't believe it got made in a studio system. It's like, oh my God, how did that happen? But yeah, and Atomic Blonde is another one I can't wait to see.
Yeah, what was great was Ex Machina. That was a great film.
Oh yeah, exactly. Look at that.
Yeah, that was a great film, and I don't think that ever saw theaters, or if it did, I didn't know about it.
It did, but it was very small.
Very small.
Yeah.
I found it on iTunes. It was like, I'm flicking through things, like, I want to watch a new movie, and it was like, oh, what's this? And I stared at it for like 3 weeks. It was like, man, this thing is not falling off the top charts. Like, I finally bought it, and I was like, man, this movie is awesome.
Yeah.
And so, but how do you get those films out there if you're somebody like us? Like, you almost couldn't do it before. And so, with Distributor, I felt like I had a guy that actually cared about, he's not going to do the work for me. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter what your distribution is. Like, if your movie sucks, you're not gonna get anywhere. If you don't have an audience, you're not gonna get anywhere. But I felt like he gave me a very fair way of putting my film in a situation where it could succeed, and that's the most that you can hope for, from a distributor.
Right.
And so,
right.
Yeah. So, I had no issues with Distributor. They did a great job with everything. anytime there was any kind of issue, they addressed it immediately. Like they raised issues to me to like improve the way that our film was going to be viewed. Like it was a great experience. I'll definitely use them again.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the release strategy of Range 15? Like, did you go all through iTunes first? We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. To kind of get the ranking up, can you talk a little bit about that?
No, we did iTunes and Amazon at the same time.
Okay.
But we, frankly, we just didn't know what we were doing. So we felt like iTunes was going to be bigger. Mm-hmm. Because, and iTunes also shares more of the profit with you. Mm-hmm. And so, they do. And I've had iTunes forever. And so, and as has Jared. And so there's a little bit of a bias to what you know. Mm-hmm. And so we thought, iTunes is going to be the bigger one and Amazon would be like a distant second. And actually it was quite the opposite.
Really?
And so, iTunes did very well. Don't get me wrong. I think iTunes the first week beat Amazon, but that was the last time it beat Amazon. And
really?
And the difference there is the platform. So with Apple, we were an also ran, like we were another product in their system. Mm-hmm. Even though we went all the way to number 2 on the charts and we lost to Angry Birds on iTunes, which they supported big time because it's their film. Mm-hmm. But even though we were number 2 on the charts for 11 days, nobody from Apple ever reached out and said, can we get some graphics? Can we
pump this?
Nobody pumped it. Nobody pushed it. Nobody did anything. Like it went to number 2, sat there for over a week, and then, started coming down, and, it stayed in the top 25 for, I think a month and a half. And it did very well, but like, there was no like movement, we just kind of got ignored, and that's fine. Like there's no judgment there, but with Amazon, I actually had breakfast with 2 Amazon executives, when I was out there for Not a War Story, talking about, how we're going to launch that with Amazon as well at some point. Mm-hmm. But they were hilarious. They're like, look, man, here's the truth. We woke up, we checked the dailies, and we see this movie, Range 15, that's, over, Batman versus Superman and over Divergence. And we called IT because we thought we either got hacked or there was some error in our system that needed to be fixed. Mm-hmm. And then when we realized, oh, this is real, like people are actually buying this movie, they had low man on the totem pole go and Google it and figure out who the hell we were, because they had no idea who we were. And then they reached out to us. So this is all within 24 hours of being on their site. Mm-hmm. They reached out to us, and it was their executive vice president. It wasn't just somebody. Mm-hmm. And he was like, look, you've got lightning in a bottle here. Like, we want to push it. Here's what we need. And they gave us a bunch of sizes that they needed graphics for. Mm-hmm. And, we made those graphics within an hour, had them back to them. The next day they were up on the site, and, and they're still talking to us like, oh, hey, we've got Veterans Day coming up. We could do this, that, or the other thing. Like, those guys Amazon knows how to sell better than anybody on the planet.
That's very true. That is very true.
Everybody else is in distant second. So these guys, they have a product. People want it. They want more people to buy it. And they're incredibly easy to work with. So
a lot of the traction you got on Amazon was strictly because at the beginning you got a big push from your audience, but then they just saw it and they decided to move on it and help you. So by them helping you, it definitely kept the revenue coming in higher because your profile went up.
But even now, like they were laughing. They're like, they cannot believe how many people are still buying the film. Mm-hmm. They said like films, it's a year from when we launched right now. And you typically at this point, you've got your maybe $300-400 a month coming in, especially for an indie film.
Mm-hmm.
We're still doing thousands of dollars, on a monthly basis for the movie. So
that's insane.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Now let me ask you a question. So to get up to the top 10 of iTunes is pretty substantial. You need to do some major numbers. Can you talk about sales, as far as sales or rentals or transactions? How many do you think that people need to get, to make any sort of traction whatsoever? Is that something you could talk about?
So I don't know exactly how many you have to sell, to
give or take.
We did, in that first month, we did about $1 million
in revenue.
No, in our cut.
Okay, your cut. Jesus,
our cut.
Oh wow! So the movie, this movie definitely has broken 7 figures.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
So it's a very successful independent film, to say the least.
Successful independent film. Yeah, we're like I said, we're very proud of the community for making this thing happen.
Wow. And it's still going. People are still finding it.
People are still buying it, still watching it. So it's not a huge film, but we've done a few $1 million on this movie at this point, and we put some of the money towards the documentary,
mm-hmm.
and and we're hoping that does frankly better. We're hoping that's a bigger film in a lot of ways than the actual movie was. So
because you said it hasn't done a lot. I guarantee you that everybody listening to this podcast right now would kill to make $1 million or $2 million or $3 million on their independent film. So it's a substantial. I mean, I've been in the indie business in the film business for over 20 years, getting close to 25 for God's sakes, and I've rarely heard a story like this. This is a unicorn style story, so you should be extremely proud of what you've done.
I appreciate
that's why I wanted you on the show. When I heard the story, I was like, this does not happen every day. It's very rare, and it's still niche. That's the thing that I find so fascinating about Range 15. This is not a movie that blew up into the mainstream, because a lot of indie movies go and they find their audience and they just kind of blow up and everybody hears about them. Range 15 is still within its niche. It's kind of broken out a little bit here and there, maybe in the action genre, but generally speaking, it's still niche. It's still underground.
Yeah. And so right now, we're hoping, we're either going to end up on Amazon Prime, or we're going to end up on Netflix. And I want to pair the documentary with the film. I don't just want Range 15 to end up in one of these things. I want both, because I think people that watch the documentary and then watch the film
will get a better
love the film forever.
Yeah.
People that just watch the film, they either love it or they hate it. But with the documentary, people have an appreciation for how hard it really was to get this movie done.
Got it. Now, and how well have the DVDs and Blu-rays have been selling of Range 15? I'm just curious because a lot of people say that DVD and Blu-ray is dead.
No, we've sold a ton, and it's interesting because we only have sold them on range15.com.
Yeah,
and the reason for that is even though Amazon is really easy to work with on a lot of things, they have a lot of rules to protect the customer, and because we've never actually sold DVDs before, we need to get a waiver. And by the time we realized all of this, how you had to do it and, how long it took. And we just didn't have time because the movie was releasing. So we never put it on Amazon.
Right.
So we're selling all these DVDs and Blu-rays off of a website that it's literally its only function is to sell Blu-rays and DVDs. It's nothing. Like, that's it, you know?
Now, how did you leverage Range 15 to sell other products and create other revenue streams?
So, you know, we are in the process of working on a app right now, like a phone game, associated with Range 15.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
We created apparel off of Range 15, posters off of Range 15. You know, we're in that business already. So, you know, we both own apparel companies.
Infrastructure was easy to put it into your product, into your pipeline.
Yep. And when you look at the other guys, Rocco, Jared, and Matt own, Lead Slingers Whiskey, which was the other part of the Cure, in the film. And, so now for all time, their whiskey is in this, cult military movie, and so everything, we are meatheads, and we are, to some extent, clowns, but, we really kind of planned all this out so that, like, everybody would win long term. All these people that came and supported us, all of the sponsors that came in, like, I really want these people to all win for all time, because they supported this film.
Wow. Now, can you talk a little bit about Not a War Story, the documentary behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started off as we were going to do a short that we just included on the DVD. And I asked this guy, Tim O'Donnell. So earlier we talked about, the first silly video that we ever made, the Ranger Up workout video. That was 9 years ago. And Tim O'Donnell is the guy that I hired to do that. He and I met at a UFC fight. He was an art teacher, and he had just made his first documentary on the side about a wrestler that he had coached. And we were there because I was sponsoring a fighter by the name of Jorge Rivera, and he was doing a short about Jorge. And he didn't have a lot of commercial work at the time, and so he thought it'd be cool to do some funny videos with us. And so, I think the first paycheck for like a whole weekend, I think we paid him like $1,500, and he made like 7 videos, like nothing. We weren't big, he wasn't big, and we just had a lot of fun. And so he and I over the years have made 4 pretty significant documentaries that have won some festival awards. They're just passion projects, to tell stories about veterans. And when we were doing this, I asked him if he was interested in doing it. He was like, yeah, absolutely. And again, the plan was, hey, he was going to come out for a couple sessions and then come out during filming and, make a 10, 15-minute short for the DVD. 2 days in, he took Jared and I aside, and he was like, guys, I don't think this is a short. I think this is a feature film. I'm getting gold. The interviews with all the vets that are here, is absolute gold. The crises that you guys are constantly dealing with is gold. Like, I think we need to do this. And I was, Jared and I talked about it. And we're like, all right, absolutely, let's do it. And so, he and, the second unit director for the documentary, Alex Miller, proceeded to capture, the next year of, everything that happened, the editing, the
selling
points, the Sundance, selling, going to Iraq with the film, everything. And we ended up with a film that we think is, and you have to take all of this with a grain of salt, right? In some ways, it's not in any way disrespectful to like the making of Range 15, but Range 15 is a funny B flick. Not a War Story is a really powerful film. Far more powerful than I expected. You know, actually watching it gave me anxiety because I was reliving the things that had happened.
Sure.
And that I had forgotten all about, you know. And audiences thus far have loved it. You know, we've done 2 screenings. One was like a test screening with, 50 people, and we actually purposefully chose the most liberal people we could find. They were all, because we wanted them to have like literally no affiliation with the military. We almost tried to find people that were almost combatant towards the military, to be honest, because we wanted the worst possible experience.
Right.
And they loved it. And so, and then we had our premiere at the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, which frankly was a surreal moment.
That must be a surreal moment.
It was insane. Yeah. Standing there like between 2 Oscars, giving a speech about a movie.
That's insane.
And it got, pretty universal acclaim out there. And so, we're now in the process of submitting our application for an Oscar bid, which, we 100% realize is a long shot, but, I can't think of a better win for the community than us miraculously pulling this off.
That would be pretty insane.
Like just coming back and saying, guys, like, you did this.
Are you self-distributing it as well?
I don't know yet, and so we've had some great meetings with a lot of people, and we're gonna see what happens.
Gotcha.
I would love for this film to have broader distribution, because whereas Range 15, we delivered it. We told our constituency, we are going to make this movie for you. And so everybody else wanted to change it. They wanted to remove scenes. They wanted to release it on their timeline. And, we could not do that. Like, the community funded the movie. We made a promise to the community. We had to deliver on that promise. With Not a War Story, I think it's a bigger film in that I've never seen a film that does a better job of bridging the civilian-military divide. You get a window into the military community that I think is needed, because it humanizes the military.
Wow.
It's very easy to turn veterans into caricatures, right? And the caricature that most people convert you to depends on kind of your worldview and where you grew up and how you grew up. Either, you think veterans are broken by war, maybe alcoholics, maybe suicidal, or you think veterans are, perfect white knights with, the moral fiber of like,
Sir Lancelot.
Yes. Thank you. And so, neither of those things is true.
Right.
And, you see very clearly that like we're a cross section of society with different goals, different belief systems, but that we're a very tight knit community, and we use gallows humor, a lot to kind of, deal with things. When things go wrong, there are more jokes, not less. As things get more intense, we tend to get sillier. And that's because that's the way it is in the military. That's what we're accustomed to.
Now,
so all of that is captured, in this film.
Well, man, I wish you the best of luck with that film. I can't wait to see it. I really, really want to see it. Now, do you have another narrative film on the horizon? Are you going to try to do Range 16? No, I'm joking. But do you have another film on the horizon?
So, right now, in terms of another group project, I think we'd all like to work together on another major project, a sequel at some point. But, literally right now, Matt is deep into finishing his book, where he got a huge deal with Penguin Books.
Nice.
And, he's got to focus on that. Tim Kennedy, he's on season 3 of Hunting Hitler, and he's about to launch a new show about, I can't even talk about it. It's a crazy show where Tim basically almost dies over and over again.
No, Jesus. Okay.
Vince Vargas is going to be on the Mayans, and also has a show coming out on the History Channel. And so the Mayans is the Sons of Anarchy spinoff. Jared Taylor is doing a reality show called Blood on the Deck, where he is a shipboat captain who has never fished before, trying to compete against Dakota Meyer, who's a Medal of Honor recipient on a different boat. And I am, I'm taking Not a War Story across the finish line, and also pitching a series right now that we have 4 in the can called 22 for 22.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Which are 22 documentaries. So 22 veterans a day kill themselves. And people, I know it's crazy. And people focus on that number a lot. And what we want to do is we want to tell 22 inspiring stories, try to reclaim that number a little bit. 22 people that have faced adversity and dealt with it, and not always won, like not always out and like, oh yeah, things were tough and then they got incredible. Like sometimes things were tough and I worked really hard and they were still tough, but they keep moving. Yeah. And so we want to tell 22 stories of people that are taking it on the chin and continuing to drive forward to show people that they're not alone. And so that's my documentary project. And then I'm writing a super dark movie right now, going a totally different direction from what I did with Range 15, and starting to build a team to do that. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Like everybody's doing really cool stuff, and the nice thing about this group of guys is we all support each other. Like I'm hoping Matt, ends up with the New York Times bestseller. I'm hoping Jared ends up with a top show. I'm hoping Rocco turns into a big star as a result of doing the Mayans. Like, it's a cool group of people, and like everybody's pushing forward.
Now, can you give what advice would you have for a filmmaker just starting out in the business?
So I give the same advice to aspiring filmmakers that I give to aspiring entrepreneurs, and everybody wants to win right out of the gate, right? And you can argue that we did, right? But that argument is false, because what happened, it took me a decade to build this audience. Yeah. It took the Article 15 guys 3 years to build their audience. And before that, though, before they built their audience, Jared was making videos for 4 years. Matt was making videos for 3 years. So, you start with something. Like you want to be an aspiring, you want to make a film, start making films. Start making shorts, post those shorts online, build an audience, figure out what the audience likes and what they don't. Like sometimes filmmakers, get a little bit up their own butt, and they think that they are these, the greatest creative artist of all time. And like, I'll be honest with you, like I watch things like Project Greenlight. And these guys like, oh man, I've got to shoot it on film. Like, I don't know. Can I swear on this podcast?
Absolutely.
All right. Like when I watched that dude get handed $2 million.
Which season?
This was the latest one. Where
the very last one. Oh, I haven't seen. The last one on HBO.
Dude, he gets handed $2 million, which is the most they've ever handed anybody.
Right? Yeah, they've never handed that much out.
And he's like, I've got to shoot this whole thing on film. And the producers are like, we really don't think that's a good idea. And like they go to like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and they're like, he wants to shoot on film, and they talk to him about the difficulties. But then they're like, well, he wants to do it, so we're going to let him. Like, I would have been like, you know what, motherfucker? Like, not only no, but like, get the fuck out of here. We're going to pick someone else, because if you're that much of an ass clown that you don't realize that this project is already going to be so hard, somebody is handing you $2 million that isn't your money. And you're not listening to their advice. Like, you don't need to be in this business. Like, you don't need to be.
Oh, my friend, that's the majority of people I meet in this business.
Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, a fun little fact, I was in season 2 of Project Greenlight.
Really?
I was in the very opening, very small part. I was in the opening sequence of episode 1 as one of my entry tapes because I made it to like almost the top 50 of filmmakers. I made it to the top 50 that year.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That was a lot of fun. But
Yeah, like-
those stories, I stopped watching them. I couldn't do it anymore because they're just gnawing at you. Like something as stupid as that. Like, dude, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I did not know the show existed. So after we finished, Ross, our director for Range 15, was like, "You've never seen Project Greenlight?" He's like, "Go watch it."
Oh, dude,
go watch it. He's like, "Those guys have been given every opportunity, and they still managed to screw it up." And man, I was furious. Like every single time, I can't stop watching it though because it's like they're all clowns.
You know what? It's
the season 1 guy was probably the best,
and he was humble, a little humble. Just
he was
ignorant. He's very ignorant to the process.
Ignorant but humble. And
yes,
you can
learned.
Yeah, you can understand somebody not knowing what they're doing,
and that's fine.
You can allow for that.
Yes,
but when somebody is cocky and they don't know what they're doing,
that's dangerous combination, my friend.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's completely
$2 million.
Yeah, like
$2 million.
Completely understandable if you don't know what you're doing, and if you're ignorant. And my God, that kid was thrown into, a whirlwind. He had never seen anything like that before, and he was just trying to hold on for dear life. And that's fine, but when you're an ass about it.
Yes.
Come on.
I've got to make my first movie on film. Dude, are you I still, even now thinking about it, it pisses me off.
And then I had on the show Sean Baker, who shot Tangerine on the iPhone, the one that got sold to Magnolia and went on to do big things. He's like, dude, I wanted, and he, by the way, in the next movie he shot on, that was his 5th movie, and he chose to shoot on the iPhone for the look. Because he could have shot on anything. And that was with the Duplass brothers and all that stuff.
Yep.
But he just went out and did it. It's fascinating. And now I'm going to ask you 3 questions I always ask, or 2 questions I always ask all my guests. What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Life is not fair.
Amen, brother.
Honest to God. Everybody keeps waiting. People have a belief that, if you just work hard for a little while, there's this meme that they post for entrepreneurs where it's like, entrepreneurs are people that work 5 years harder than anyone else so they can live the rest of their lives like no one else. I don't know a single entrepreneur that isn't still working his ass off. And I don't care if you're a multimillionaire
or billionaire
or, just starting out, everybody's working, that's the way it is. The challenges only get harder, and sometimes things happen and you have no control over it and they suck and they hurt you. And, people lose businesses all the time over things that they didn't even do. And, life is not fair. And so you can't, when bad things happen, and they will, you cannot sit there and go, woe is me, this isn't right, but don't you guys understand it happened because of this reasons? No one cares, and you have to deal with the now. Mm-hmm. If you don't deal with the now, it will get out of control. You will lose control, and you will lose all of it. So you have to deal with reality instead of dealing with what should be.
I know it's not bitching about what should be or what. I should be this. I should be that.
Does you no good.
Now, would you agree, because you work with, I'm sure there's a lot of entrepreneurs after you started basically the business that you're in with the T-shirts and building up that apparel company, there must have been multiple guys who've come along trying to replicate and go after it. But the one thing,
and some have done it successfully, and
which is fine. Which is fine. I mean, that's part of the business. You want to have you want to have 100 guys, so the industry is much larger. But do you find it? And I find this quote from Eric Thomas. I don't know if you know who Eric Thomas is. He's a motivational speaker. They call him.
Yeah, I do not know him, but I'll look him up.
They call him the hip hop preacher because he works with the Patriots. He works with a lot of NFL, a lot of NBA guys and stuff. He says this quote, which I thought was so great. He's like, you can't love the goal. You gotta be in love with the grind.
The process.
The grind. Because if you're in love with the goal, you'll never make it. You've got to be in love with that day-to-day, ball busting, got to get the job done, no matter what situation, whether being a filmmaker or an entrepreneur. Is that it? Would you be in agreement?
That's 100% true.
Now, what are 3 of your favorite films of all time?
Ooh,
The toughest question always.
That's always tough.
Obviously,
always
range 15,
tough.
but no.
Yeah. So let's try to kind of break it down. I'm not going to try to go for anything like super heavy and like, oh, look how,
Dude,
how many great films I've watched.
Yeah. So Citizen Kane, Casablanca. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
I do really like Casablanca.
No, who doesn't? I mean, seriously,
that would be disingenuous for me to say.
Casablanca is so amazing.
Recent film that I really love is Sicario.
Yeah, it was a great flick, man. Good flick.
Love that film. I probably watched Sicario 13, 14 times.
Yeah.
Because I love the way he shoots it, and I love the feel of it, and I love the no nonsense, no nonsense way that the characters kind of deal with life. So really enjoy that film. I love Rushmore.
That's a good flick, man. Yeah.
Am I going to say it's one of the best 3 films of all time? I don't know.
No, to you. It's not a list for everybody else. It's a list to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rushmore is a great flick. I personally think it's Wes Anderson's best. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but oh man, and you know what? I know it's super typical, but I'm going to go with Lord of the Rings, and the reason I'm going to say Lord of the Rings. The first, just the
trilogy,
whole set.
The trilogy,
The reason for that is because I've always loved fantasy, but before Lord of the Rings, every fantasy movie was cheesy and terrible, and it just made you feel like a nerd. You're like, man, I'm watching this movie because I'm a nerd, because I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, because I read these books, but I know deep down this movie's terrible. Then Lord of the Rings comes out, and you're like,
wins an Oscar.
Shit.
Wins multiple Oscars.
This movie is amazing.
Right.
And now it's cool to make fantasy movies. And without Lord of the Rings, there's no Game of Thrones.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Peter Jackson had to show everybody how to do it.
Right, no question. Now I'm gonna go back real quick on fantasy movies. I think you and I are similar ages, or close at least. Do you remember a movie called Krull?
Yes.
One of the greatest movies I ever saw as a child. If I look at it today, it's embarrassing. It's horrible.
It's unwatchable.
But Liam Neeson's first movie.
Yeah, really.
Liam Neeson's first acting role.
Yeah. It's unwatchable now. Yeah, you watch it only because you grew up with the memory.
I don't want to watch it because I want to keep on. I want to hold on to that memory because I don't.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm gonna go watch Willow.
Oh God, Jesus. Yes. So Nick, where can people find you and your companies?
So you can. We're all over social media. Facebook, you can look up Ranger Up. You can look up Nick Palmisciano. Same thing with Instagram, Ranger Up or Nick Palmisciano. And then, my compatriots, that I did the films with, you can find on Article 15, Matt Best, Jared Taylor, Vince Vargas. Also our side, Tim Kennedy and Jack Mandeville. And then the movie itself, Range 15. And we're literally anything you go to, whether you're talking Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we're on everything. So, Ranger Up, Nick Palmisciano, and all those other guys.
You're everywhere, man. Dude, first of all, man, again, I wanted to say thank you for not only being on the show, thank you for your service, man. I wholeheartedly appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your story, your inspirational story, and how you got Ranger 15 out, man. I hope it inspires some people to get off their ass and actually go make some movie, because there is a blueprint and you can do it, but it's not going to happen in a day. It might take 5 years to do. It might take 10.
10 years.
Yeah, but it's doable.
Keep grinding.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Nick, thanks again, brother.
Yes, sir.
If that doesn't inspire you guys to go out and make a movie, I don't know what will. honestly, I just want to thank Nick so much for being on the show and sharing his story and inspiration for all of us as filmmakers, that it is possible. You can do it. It's just going to take a lot of work and a lot of grind. And you've got to learn how to love that grind, that day-to-day, day-in, day-out work to get your movies out there, to make your dreams come true. And Nick and the whole team of Range 15 is a perfect example of that. And I really hope you guys find some inspiration in Nick's story. And as you heard in episode 166, my entire distribution, self-distribution plan and how we're using Distributor to do it, I'll put links to all of that stuff and how to get a hold of Range 15 and how to get a hold of Nick and everything in the show notes at indiefilmhustle.com/167. And don't forget to head over to freefilmbook.com. That's freefilmbook.com to download your free filmmaking or screenwriting audiobooks, guys. It's awesome. I listen to audiobooks all the time, and Audible is awesome. They have a quick, great app, and you can try it out for free, man. You can get one free audiobook, no strings attached. Head over to freefilmbook.com. And as always, keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.